Hi, Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor. Today we're going to learn a little bit about how the brain is impacted by trauma. As you can see by my amazing drawing here of the brain, I'm sure you're all jealous of my amazing artistic skills, right? I have painstakingly tried to create a simple brain here. We have the prefrontal cortex, as you see, is in the front of our brain. The amygdala is kind of buried in the middle of our brain, and that's represented by the fire. And then the hippocampus is at the bottom, underneath the amygdala, and that's represented by the hippo. And essentially, trauma impacts the three of these in various ways, and it impacts how we respond to life and definitely our higher order thinking and our emotions. So yeah, the prefrontal cortex is really involved here. That's the one that's responsible for goal setting and planning and higher order thinking skills. And yeah, that can be impacted by trauma where we do have problems with like impulse control and strong emotional reactions and problems with like decision making. And then we have good old Amy. I like to call the amygdala Amy. She's the smoke alarm, the chronic detector that's really scanning the system, the entire environment for threats. And she's the one that really is based on instincts and survival reflexes. And then good old hippo there at the bottom. That is the one that is involved in memories. And during trauma, what happens is the past bleeds into the present. And so we really have a hard time with triggers, for example, and flashbacks. So that's how that can impact the brain. The next slide is good old prefrontal cortex. This is represented by a cute little nerdy guy. I think he's so cute. And really, again, the prefrontal cortex is that higher order thinking, and it's going to be responsible for like regulating behaviors and planning and decision making, problem solving, acting out long-term goals. And essentially, trauma damages the prefrontal cortex's ability to make good decisions, and it reduces critical thinking skills, and it can become underactive. So, yeah, if our prefrontal cortex is not online and operating as it should, we can be a lot more emotionally reactive than we might otherwise normally be. And we might struggle with good decision making. And it's kind of hard to plan for the future as well. So trauma can impact us in those three ways. All right. The next upcoming slide is our cute little hippocampus. And I like to show the hippocampus as a cute, fat, chubby hippo. And you always want your hippo to be fat and healthy. And so what trauma does basically is it shrinks our hippocampus. And you don't want a skinny, small little hippo, right? You want your hippo fat, big, and healthy. So yeah, unfortunately, the hippocampus can be reduced from trauma exposure. The hippocampus is part of our limbic, our emotional centers of our brain. It also can impact memory and recall. And it has trouble making new memories too from chronic trauma. So this is where our memories can become jumbled and disorganized. Trauma survivors oftentimes report memory gaps from their childhoods. Either they'll be missing entire events, or it's hard to put things in order on a trauma timeline. Sometimes I have clients who say, I really don't remember much at all of my childhood, actually. And so, yeah, this is all pretty common with complex childhood trauma and chronic exposure to childhood trauma. Our brain's ability to record memories is impacted. And we were spending much of our time just in survival mode, through all those various parts that help us survive, like disassociation or numbing, anxiety and fear and panic. And so, yeah, when those type of really strong emotions are on board, we're not going to record memories in the best way possible. All right, good old Amy here. I hope you like my my cute little Amy here. She is looking like a raging out of control, panicking fire here. And yeah, she is our threat detector, or the smoke alarm in the system. Those fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses originate here with Amy. She is also part of our limbic or emotional system of the body. And she really processes emotions and external stimuli. So she's the one that's scanning the environment and attempting to see if things are threatening or not. And if she sees a threat, she's the one that's going to kind of pull the fire alarm and create those fight, flight, freeze responses. Panic and anxiety, sweaty palms, racing heart. She's getting us ready to respond to a threat in the environment. And she does that by releasing hormones to help us survive. And essentially, what happens when we are exposed to chronic trauma, it essentially makes her overactive, where she's kind of stuck in that on position all the time. And she sees threat everywhere, even when there is no threat. So, for example, this can manifest as like hypervigilance, never feeling safe, chronically on guard, triggers like being highly reactive to stimuli or people's around us or events, and we can just kind of collapse, for example. It overwhelms the system's ability to cope. So yeah, if Amy is chronically on, that's also bad for us. Again, those chronic stress hormones in our body are responsible for the body breaking down over time. In one of my other videos, we talked about the impact of high adverse childhood experiences and how that can create chronically high levels of stress hormones in our bodies, which can contribute to physical disorders, even early death, for example, from like heart attacks and strokes and even cancer, for example. So yeah, we don't want Amy to be on all the time. She's very helpful for helping us survive actual threats, but if she's on all the time, it just can be totally miserable, and it can also contribute to poor health outcomes too. So a good trauma therapist can help us calm Amy down and learn coping skills and do some great trauma therapy to help calm the body and brain down. All right, so the overall impact of trauma here. So Amy has become overactive. She sees threat everywhere. This also contributes to a low distress tolerance, where we have a hard time tolerating distress. We also can have a hard time controlling painful emotions. And again, Amy's overactive, so that's really where we see the impact here. Also, our cute little hippo, for chronic trauma, again, hippo's going to have a hard time distinguishing between past and present. This results in flashbacks and short-term memory loss. Flashbacks are not fun whatsoever. You can have body flashbacks or like intrusive memories of the flashbacks. Both. I've seen both in trauma survivors. They're not fun at all. Short-term memory loss. So, for example, a hard time remembering events, especially remembering events in order. And then the prefrontal cortex, so the good old cute little nerdy guy, he shrinks as well. And it becomes harder to regulate thoughts and emotions. And we have difficulty expressing ourselves. We're going to struggle with rumination and lots of negative thoughts, and really have a poor ability to regulate our emotions like fear and anxiety. Our stress responses go up. And really, overall, it damages our ability to know ourselves and to trust others too. And that is really a huge part of how trauma impacts us as human beings. So I hope this video was helpful. It's just a short one, but really such an important one for trauma survivors to understand how trauma impacts their bodies and their brains. And I look forward to providing more information like this. Please let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to comment below. A like and a subscribe is so appreciated. I hope to provide much more content like this. And I wish you all well. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Also, if you would like to find out how to calm Amy down, I've included a link to my previously recorded meditation and breathing exercise. Feel free to check it below in the description.